Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to continue our discussion of grammar, but in this we're going to go beyond just specific words. That's pretty much what we were doing in the last ones where we were looking at parts of speech. Parts of speech. Parts of speech deal with just specific words like a noun, an adjective, an adverb, a preposition, a conjunction, or something like that. All right. Now, of course, when you have a preposition, the preposition does involve an entire phrase from the preposition to the object of the preposition. And yes, to have an adjective, one must also have a noun. But those still, we're looking at the word level. We're looking specifically at one word and how that one word works. But that's not the case when we get to phrases and clauses. All right, so these are the things that we are going to use as we are building our sentences. All right, it takes these to build a sentence. Well, you can build a sentence without a phrase, but you cannot in any way ever build a sentence without a clause. A clause is mandatory to sentence construction. All right, and you'll see why here in just a second. All right, so as always, I will ask students, when I have students in this classroom, I will ask them what is a phrase, a clause, and how are they different from one another. First question then is, what is a phrase? There's a little bit of hemming and hawing, or people aren't quite sure or whatever, but essentially it lands upon someone will just come up with the idea that a phrase is simply a collection of words. That's it. Yes, they're running bells even though no students are here. Anyway, so please pardon that if it interrupts us again. All right, a phrase is just a collection of words. That's it. Words that go together. Now, there are different types of phrases. We have prepositional phrases. We have participial phrases. We have absolute phrases. We have appositive phrases. There are all different kinds of phrases, of course. All right. These are just collections of words that have specific characteristics. For example, the prepositional phrase is a collection of words that begins with a preposition and then ends at the object of the preposition, that noun. All right. So since that collection of words has those specific traits, we call it a prepositional phrase. All right. It is a phrase, and prepositional then is the adjective modifying the type of phrase that it is. All right. A participial phrase again is a collection of words beginning with a I did say participial phrase. Participial phrase begins with the participle, and then it goes on until the idea that it encapsulates is finished. All right. So that's essentially, if we were to distill it down to its essence, that is what a phrase is. It's just a collection of words. All right. And if we note that those collections of words have distinct characteristics, then we will attach an adjective to it that addresses those particular characteristics. Participial, prepositional, absolute, or what have you. We will get to some of those other types of phrases later. But for our discussion right now, collection of words suits us just fine. Now, let's talk about clauses. What is a clause and what makes a clause a clause? All right. Well, does anyone out there know? Has anyone considered this or studied this? Maybe you did before, but it's been a while. That's quite possibly the case. But what do you think? What makes a clause a clause? And how is a clause different from a phrase? All right. I'll just go ahead and give it to you since you can't yell out the answer, because I'm certain you have it right. A clause also is a collection of words. Yes. All right. It cannot be a phrase, or I mean a clause, cannot be a single word. In one case, I believe it might be, or in some cases that are, I might discuss here in a minute. But it's a collection of words, but we're not quite yet done. It's a collection of words containing a subject and a verb. All right? It contains a subject and a verb. All right. These won't have subjects or won't have verbs. If there is a noun in a prepositional phrase, we refer to it as the object of the preposition. It is not the subject of the preposition. There is a difference. All right? Clauses must have subjects and verbs. And now I know what you're thinking. A subject and a verb. When we have those, we have a sentence, right? Have a subject, have a verb, have a sentence. Well, yes. In some cases, sure. So let's take a look. Subject, verb. All right? We could have the student sleeps. The student sleeps. The subject, obviously in this case, the subject is student. And the verb, the activity that student is engaged in is sleeping. Student sleeps. This is the verb. And typically when I'm doing sort of grammar in this way, I will underline a subject. I will circle the verb. I would box in other things just so you can kind of see the way that I go about doing this. All right, we have the student, subject, sleeps, verb. So this is a clause because it has what a clause requires, which is a subject and a verb. Now, is this a sentence? Well, absolutely. It is also a sentence, okay? A sentence, what I said earlier, is one must have a clause to have a sentence. And in this case, the clause is the sentence, all right? Subject, verb. Pretty easy, all right? Now, I could say the student sleeps in class. What have I added to this? Those of you who are grammatically savvy would know that this right here is a prepositional phrase. All right? Now, because this prepositional phrase is here, does it change whether or not this is a clause? The answer, no. This is a clause that happens to contain a phrase. But that phrase being there does not change. It does not alter whether or not this is a clause. It just is a clause that happens to contain within it a phrase. All right? So, we have the subject, we have the verb. This is a complete thought, is it not? Even if we did not have this, even if we were to remove this, put that period over there, the student sleeps. Is that a complete thought? The answer, yes. It's a complete thought. This student does this. This student performs this task. All right? So, yes, it is a complete thought, and therefore it is a sentence. All right? But we have a grammatical, academic term for this. All right? A clause, must contain a subject and a verb. A clause that can stand alone on its own and make sense by itself is referred to as an independent clause. All right? It is an independent clause because it needs nothing else for it to make sense. All right? It is a complete thought. It is independent. It can exist on its own the way an independent individual can exist on his own or her own or whatever. All right? Now, let's take this same bit. The student sleeps. I'm going to add something very simple, very slight. As the student sleeps. Is it still a clause? The answer? Yeah, it is still a clause. For it still has a subject and a verb. If the subject and verb is there, if it is present, if you can locate a subject and a verb, ladies and gentlemen, you have a clause whether or not it can stand alone and make sense. Because this right here, as the student sleeps, that's not a complete thought. Your question would be, as the student sleeps, what? I'm waiting for the rest of it. All right? As the student sleeps, as the student sleeps, the class learns the secrets of the universe. All right. My question now is, what did we add to this? What is the class learns the secrets of the universe? Is there a subject and a verb there, or is that just a phrase? My hope is that you clued in. This is a clause as well. Class is a subject here. Learns is the verb here. All right? So this on its own is a clause. However, it cannot stand alone to make sense. It needs this. The class learns the secrets of the universe. Is that a complete thought? Can that stand alone and make sense as an idea? Yes. All right? So this right here is an independent clause. The class learns the secrets of the universe. That is a complete thought. That is an independent clause. All right? So this right here can go ahead and fall under that label. As the student sleeps, though, this is what is known as a dependent clause. All right? It does not make sense on its own. It depends on something else. It needs more before it can make total and complete sense. Much the same way a dependent person needs somebody else to help it out. A dependent person depends on an independent person, okay? I have a daughter, as you know. And my daughter depends on me to come to work, to make money, to buy groceries, to do all the things. She is unable to do those things on her own. My son, on the other hand, he's 22 years old. He's getting his, he's working on his, postgraduate work, and he's getting paid to do it. And he's getting paid. He pays his own rent. He goes to the grocery store and picks up his stuff. He makes all the decisions for his apartment. It's all up to him. He's now independent. He no longer needs me. He's got his own thing. All right? So he's independent, my daughter is not, but my daughter needs me and I am independent. So it's the same type of thing here. We have something is dependent and something that is independent. All right? The independent one doesn't need anything. That's why it's independent. The dependent one needs, all right? And sometimes this is also referred to as a subordinate clause. Okay, you might see that word sometimes, but dependent clause and subordinate clause are words that can be interchanged with one another. All right? So, as far as phrases and clauses go, that's where I'm going to stop. Now, we will do something with this information because this is not the end of the line as far as our clauses and our phrases go. But just so that you can see the definition and you can see the two side by side, well, that's enough for now. All right? So I appreciate you taking the moment to give this a go, and I'll check you later.